Welcome to episode 259 of Destination Linux. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of sudo, this is the podcast for you. My name is Michael.
I'm Jill.
I'm Ryan.
And also just off camera is piped in directly in from Jitsi as our glorious community of fact-checking, ego-busting patrons. On this week's episode of Destination Linux, we're going to dig into the infamous Log4J vulnerability and attacks with our good friend Bo Weaver, and then we're going to discuss the recent Solus Saga and what the community can expect from this. Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks. All this and much more coming up right now on Destination Linux.
So this week in the community feedback, Ness writes us to say, "Hey DLN crew, I believe it was Chris Lass who made a joke." I don't think that's his last name. I think it's Chris from Lass, but we'll go with it. Chris Lass. That's your new name, Chris. Had a joke about System 76 sponsoring a NASCAR stock car, and I think that got the idea stuck in my head. Still think System 76 should do it officially, though. In the last year, I've fallen heavily in love with motorsports, which as a techie, I soon realized was a dangerous rabbit hole because of iRacing. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, iRacing is not playable on Linux. Nonetheless, at least I could grab a skin from Trading Paints based on Linux to rep, right? No, zero search results, zero. There's definitely needs to be more Linux and open source visibility in the racing scene, and I'll be glad to lend a hand. Very limited knowledge for the GIMP tool or not. They're going to get in there and make some racing skins for open source. They're using System 76 as a primary sponsor. Felt like a no-brainer, not only because they've won my fandom through rock-solid hardware and software. Things just work, and it's amazing. And when they don't, support has gone above and beyond to help. And some like AMD, etc., feel far-fetched, but at the same time, I see plenty of big-name brands plastered all over Trading Paints community, so what do I know? I do have a line in the System 76 Discord as far as their approval goes, so he's trying to get approval for using theirs, and wants to know, Michael, if he can create DLN-related iRacing logos. He wants permission there. For formality and clarity, I'm purely a rookie racer with passion for the open source Linux scene. I'm requesting permission to publicly publish this and use Trading Points or TradingPaints.com for no financial gain or benefit of my own. Additionally, noting if approval would be carte blanche, logos can be used on future skin designs or only case-by-case basis. Thank you for all you guys do. What do you think, Jill? I mean, Michael and I run the company, but really everyone comes for you. So I think we should just let Jill make the decision here. Jill, should we give permission
Absolutely.
to utilize our... What?
Yeah.
How much should we charge them, Jill?
Yeah.
$100? $500?
Aw.
$10,000? Fine, free. Fine, free. So
Yes, we'll charge you absolutely nothing. This is interesting because
Jill is too nice.
Yeah, Jill's just too nice.
So you have our permission on a recorded episode, which doesn't get better than this, right? To go ahead
very
and
obvious
utilize
proof to show.
our logos. You could use Hardware Addicts. You could use the Destination Linux. You can go and make all of these for people who do iRacing. I wasn't familiar with iRacing. I started doing some research. Looks really cool stuff out there. Like, they take this serious. These are the folks that have, in a lot of cases, the full-on hardware gear where they've got the pedals and the steering wheel and the apparatuses around them to feel like a car. Like, they get into this stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool. I haven't played it myself, but I have seen people like talking about it that I know that have like described their experience with it, and they've seemed to be addicted to it. So.
Actually, I think iRacing will be fully playable on Linux soon now that Easy Anti-Cheat runs on Linux, because that's been one of the big issues. And I looked on Proton DB, and it only has a bronze rating, unfortunately. But I saw people had some workarounds that will make the game launch and work. And that's really, really, really cool. I think I think this year you're going to see it running pretty well on Linux.
That'd be pretty cool. I'd like to see that. I
also like the name Trading Paint.
That is such a good name.
You know, because I don't know much
name.
about racing, but I assume that's when
when they bump.
They're rubbing, you know, and they bump and they trade
such
paint
a good
in there.
name.
Yeah.
It is a good name.
Such a good name.
There. Well, we're going to have a DLN logo up there. Apparently, we're just giving our logos away for free thanks to Jill. But there you go. No, I'm teasing, Jill. That's the right decision.
I realized we hadn't talked about it, so I didn't know.
That's why we knew, because how kind you are, that you were going to give away for free anyway. So we do it. Yeah, absolutely. use those logos. I can't wait to see them on tradingpaints.com. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And hit us up with an email if you need some different versions of the logos and things. We'll see what we can do to hook you up. This episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by DigitalOcean. Now's the perfect time to dive into the DigitalOcean. Their new app platform service helps you build modern cloud-native apps for way less money. With App Platform, you can build, deploy, and scale apps and static websites faster and easier than ever before using a simple and intuitive interface. It is one of the greatest interfaces out there. If you've tried other cloud providers and you feel lost, come to DigitalOcean. In fact, they're going to give you $100 here to try it, and you're going to see how awesome their interface is to interact with. And they also have 5,000 cloud-agnostic tutorials, so you'll never get lost with whatever project you're working on. And you can simply point App Platform, which is one of their newer services, to your GitHub or GitLab repository, and it's going to do all of the work for you, all of the heavy lifting, whether you're using Node.js, Python, Go, PHP, Ruby, static sites, Docker, container images, whatever it is, you can just point your application there and let it go. And by running App Platform on their own infrastructure, DigitalOcean keeps your costs significantly lower. So as a Destination Linux listener and a member of the DLN community, you're going to get that $100. And here's how you're going to do it. You're going to open your browser. You're going to go to do.co/DLN. That's do.co/DLN. And there you're going to see right there when you sign up $100 credit to try it on droplets, a bunch of little droplets, one big droplet. It's all there for you, $100 to try. Thanks to DigitalOcean. And we want to thank DigitalOcean especially for sponsoring this episode of Destination Linux.
This week on Destination Linux, we invited everyone's favorite hacker and friend of the show, Bo Weaver, back on the show to talk with us about the Log4j vulnerability that's all over the news. Bo, welcome back to the show. We've missed you. Thank you for coming back.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Hi, Bo. Love.
We had everyone in the community asking, where's Bo Weaver? When's Bo coming back? And what time could be better to bring Bo back than during this Log4j disaster that's kind of going on right now. Before we get into the discussion, I want to lay some foundation for what we're going to talk about in the interview. And Bo, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been trying to follow this thing, but some of it's a little over my head. But essentially, Log4j or Log4Shell is just a vulnerability in the Apache Log4j library, and it impacts pretty much everything across all platforms: Raspberry Pis, Linux, Windows, printers, network servers. The whole gamut of devices can be impacted by this vulnerability. And it allows hackers, bad hackers, not good hackers like you, but bad hackers to get in and run any code on vulnerable machines or hack into applications directly. You do not have to have physical access. You know, sometimes we see these vulnerabilities and they're kind of hyped up. You'd have to have an hour in front of the machine with nobody around, and then maybe you could use the vulnerability, whereas this one can be remotely executed. And it's some type of exploit on the messaging system and discovered in a Minecraft server or something along those lines. Give us some information about this thing.
Okay, yeah, you're pretty right on what you were saying there. It's a lot more than just Tomcat and Minecraft. Anything that's running Java, what it is it's in the class file that does logging in Java. This is the one thing I don't understand is when you're logging, all you're supposed to be doing is putting an output to a text file. Why somebody thought that it was a good idea to be able to run code while you're logging, I don't understand.
So this is similar then to like SQL injection, where you could put commands into the space that's supposed to be just for reading logs and things, and it's going to go ahead and execute that command with, I think, sudo rights. Like if you're in
Linux. Not with sudo rights. It depends on what the server. If you do it on a Linux server, and you are right, you can take this one line string and like paste it in a username login field. You can put this in there, and when you hit the submit button, it will run that one line command on that machine. What this does is it works off of LDAP, RMI, and DNS. It'll do a lookup of it using any of those three protocols. The big one that most people are using is LDAP. So if you set up an attacking LDAP server, and then you paste this command into a victim website, or run it at the shell, or run it at a shell level, what it'll do is it'll make a call back to that LDAP server, and then the LDAP server can hand it a payload and run that payload on the machine. And if the payload is like a module to set up a reverse shell connection, you've got a reverse shell. There's several YouTube videos out there that show how to exploit this in just 3 easy commands. Bang, you own the machine. Now, like I was saying, on Linux, you just get in there under www.data or Apache or whatever that user account is that's running a Tomcat. But on Windows, it's especially vulnerable because on Windows, when you install Apache or Tomcat or JBoss, you're running at system level. So when you run this exploit, yes, you are at system level and you completely own that machine at this time.
Mm.
Yeah, what happens here is Log4j supports by default a logging feature called message lookup substitution. This feature enables certain special strings to be replaced at the time of logging by other dynamically generated strings. It has been discovered that one of these lookup methods, specifically the JNDI lookup paired with LDAP protocol, will fetch a specified Java class from a remote source and deserialize it and execute it. And that's what happens here is when you run this string, it will make a call to that attacking server, an LDAP call to that attacking server, but instead of doing an LDAP lookup, the LDAP server will then upload a payload to the victim machine and run it.
So, Bo, Linux is vulnerable to this. Windows, as you said, is more vulnerable because of the permission system by
any
default.
machine running Java may have this exploit in it. And I have included, and I've been fighting this. We spent about 10 days for our clients fighting this, trying to figure out how to protect from it and also how to detect it. What we did at work was I set up an attacking server and we ran an attack string. Now, the attacking server I set up, payload was benign that we set there. Really all it was a text file that wrote back to the machine, you've been pwned. So we weren't sending a payload to our that was the payload was just come back and said, you've been pwned. The main thing is just update your system. Because there's been 3 or 4 updates, and really right now I would do weekly, if you're running a web server or something that's running Java, I would do weekly updates for about the next month to make sure that this is taken care of, because it's still not been fully patched. They're still finding other ways to get into it. And it's been a month now, but still I've been seeing new forms of this coming up and new patches coming out.
It sounds like it's only on the server end and not on the regular desktop user. So if you're using Linux for the desktop, is there a possibility for being affected by that?
This is only server-based or anything. Yeah, well, you could say, like you said, Raspberry Pi could be vulnerable because you run these really as many servers these days.
If you install the stuff that's
as far as like building a drive-by payload to hit somebody that's just running their laptop, this is not really a vulnerability for that. You don't have to worry about that.
And it's still I think we should probably mention that it's important to keep in mind that this topic is developing very quickly. So the narrative around what you need to do, and it could change at any time.
One scary thing that happened is this affected a lot of security tools. But still, this affected so many security products that, here's the applications that's supposed to be protecting you, but now there's a hole in your network.
No.
So, Bo, talking about this vulnerability with big services like those who rely on Amazon Web Services or Google Services or Oracle or IBM or anybody else out there, what should they be doing right now? Should they trust that, AWS is taking care of this for them, or what are some of the mitigations there?
The only thing you can do is go by your provider's word, and hopefully that they're on it.
With this type of hack, once they get in, Bo, what are some of the things they can do? Are they limited in some of the execution, or can they hijack your entire machine, take all your files?
They can hijack your entire machine.
Everything.
And a lot of the ransomware gangs are starting to use this to run ransomware on network. And that's a scary thought. I mean, we've seen a couple of attempts just a week afterwards of people trying to run ransomware payloads using this attack.
Well, this year has been something else when it comes to vulnerabilities. This one's the worst I think we've seen this year, at least that's made on my radar. But this is
the worst that I've seen this year.
Is there anything else we need to tell the community, Bo, about this particular vulnerability or vulnerabilities that we could expect to see coming up this year? We hope this is a better year than last year, but what are some things on the horizon we should be looking out for? Because we are seeing a lot more vulnerabilities now that impact Linux. Whereas before, it just seemed a lot of it was Windows. Now we're seeing them that they're hitting all infrastructures, whether you're Apple, Mac, Windows.
Well, hopefully this will be the last of the Java. I kind of worry that, like it happened like about 10 years ago, they found this one vulnerability, which led to another vulnerability, and we ended up with a year of Java exploits. So I'm hoping this doesn't lead to this. And what I'm seeing right now is they pretty well got this under control and got it patched. The one thing that worries me is the amount of ransomware that is happening these days. It seems like that's gotten to be the major thing.
Because they're making tons of money off of it. A lot of these ransomwares are getting paid because there is no way to work around it. And so they're just secretly paying them.
Yeah, the biggest way around that is back up your stuff, because that's the easiest way to get out of it. We've had a couple of clients get hit by ransomware, and luckily we do very serious backups where I'm working at now, so we were able to save our clients' networks.
Yeah, so it's gonna continue. I think you're right that's the big thing to look out for this year. And your advice, I think, is solid. Back up everything that you're doing with backups that are offline so that the ransomware doesn't spread to them.
Multiple
If you
backups.
have all of your devices online, then
at least
it's not going to do you a lot of good.
If you're running virtual machines, snapshot them things every day.
Well, Bo, as usual, you are a wealth of knowledge. We are so happy to have you back on the show. We're glad you're feeling better and back in the community. Missed the heck out of you. And me and you got to get together outside the show and have lunch again.
Yeah, anytime. And it's really good to be here. And sorry I've been away for a while, but like I said, I got this new job and it keeps me busy.
Well, we're going to have you back on real soon. And I expect with everything going on, we'll have a lot of exciting new hacks and vulnerabilities to talk to you about.
Yay.
2022.
This episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by Bitwarden. Get started right now with your free account at bitwarden.com/DLN. Bitwarden is an awesome password manager allowing you to have peace of mind knowing that your online accounts are secure. Now, how does it do it? Well, Bitwarden provides you with multiple types of tools. So you got the secured vault so you can store all your passwords, an auto generator so you can generate passwords, and also an ability to automatically fill in those passwords on login forms so you don't have to do any of this stuff, which is just awesome. But in addition to that, you can also get the data across many different types of devices, whether it's your web browser, mobile apps, desktop applications, or even on the command line. Plus, Bitwarden seals and encrypts your private data with end-to-end encryption before it ever leaves your devices, so you know you're the only person with access to your data. And you can get started for free by going to bitwarden.com/DLN. But I think you want to check out their premium account because it starts at less than $1 per month. That's right, less than $1 per month gets you 1 gigabyte of encrypted file storage, 2-step login with YubiKey, U2F Duo, Vault Health Reports, Bitwarden Authenticator for temporary one-time passwords, priority customer service, so much more, including Bitwarden Send service, tons of great stuff. So make the smart move like many of the community have and go to bitwarden.com/DLN to get started with your account. And thanks again to Bitwarden for sponsoring Destination Linux.
By the way, did you hear that LastPass had this big vulnerability that got hit? And in my Patreon chat, everyone was like, thank you for telling us about Bitwarden. I'm on Bitwarden.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about this vulnerability out there. But for all the LastPass users, this is just more reason. Apparently some news hit this week of why you should be utilizing Bitwarden out there instead of LastPass or some other password manager. So there's some interesting news that happened in the open source community. In fact, this just broke like the day before we recorded today on Sunday, and it caught my attention because it's kind of been going around social media. Joshua Strobel, the co-lead of Solus and lead designer of Budgie, has resigned from Solus. We'll have a link in the show notes for the reasons that he gave, which appear to focus on some concerns with behavior of other members and things. But I have to really respect the letter that he put out there because He specifically said, I'm not going to go into details and air all the dirty laundry, but there are some disagreements with a member. Those disagreements with that member continued on, and he just decided it's time to kind of move on to something else. But the good news is that the work on Budgie is still going to continue. So Josh does a lot of work on Budgie desktop. In fact, I think that was one of his main focuses with Solus.
Yeah, that was one of his main focuses. But also what's really interesting about this, like the thing that I was really excited about it, because when people were worried about what's going to happen with Budgie, because of the whole announcement a few weeks ago about changing from the Budgie using GTK, then Budgie switching to EFL, which is the Enlightenment Foundation libraries, that was going to be what's going to happen with that. And it seems like that's still on the cards to do that. And they're going to be doing an organization for Budgie where they've asked other distributions like Ubuntu Budgie and EndeavourOS and others to kind of join in the efforts to work on a Budgie as a separate thing, which I think is pretty interesting because a lot of the times when people would talk about like which one is a better experience of Budgie, is it Solus or is it Ubuntu Budgie and that kind of thing. So I think that it's a great idea to split it off into an organization anyway, regardless if it was, whether he was staying with Solus or not. I think that's a really good idea to have all of these different distributions working together to improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Budgie's going to continue. He's stepping down from Solus, but Solus isn't going away either. I think the team put out there on social media today, was it Beverly or someone from the Solus team? Beatrice reached out in social media and said they're just going to restructure some of the work things. So if you're a Solus user, don't worry. It doesn't sound like Solus is going anywhere. And Josh is continuing the work on Budgie, but stepping away from the Solus team directly. But he also said something else that was really interesting, and that is that he plans to partner back up with Ike to work on Serpent OS.
Yay. I was happy to hear that.
Me too, because Ike has been, if you haven't been following Serpent OS, Ike actually does YouTube live streams, and I lurk there. I never say anything, because I just like watching him code, because he's a genius coder. And watching him kind of build this whole entire Linux distro out for himself. And not a lot is known about Serpent OS yet, at least, from my research and things, but he wants, his goal for Serpent OS is for you to be able to take control of your own computer, get the most from your hardware, enjoy a reliable experience, improve your experience behind the scenes, develop and contribute fast and efficiently, a thriving community, a lot of the things that a lot of people look for when they're creating a distro and a community there. But he also mentions being cutting edge. So I'm kind of interested to see, is this going to be like a semi-rolling distro, kind of like a Fedora, or a full rolling distro, kind of like an Arch? I mean, he's not going to be basing it on any of those, but is it going to be similar to those when he talks about cutting edge for being able to use the latest and greatest hardware and things like that in the distro? But one thing I know for sure is Ike and Josh together working on something again.
Yay.
Sounds pretty awesome to me.
Yeah. It's very interesting because for those who don't know, Ike was the creator of Solus, which originally was Evolve OS, and then it was changed into Solus, and then Josh joined the team and worked with him there, and then now having them come back together to see what they're going to be doing is going to be very interesting to see what happens with Serpent OS and where I'm also very curious what it means by cutting edge, because I think that approach is kind of like my preference. Like it's rolling, but not so fast rolling. It's kind of like, like
you
a
want
hybrid.
To be cutting edge, but not razor edge.
Yeah,
like
I want it to be not. I don't want it to be the bleeding edge. I just want it to be like right before it bleeds.
Bleeding edge.
The bleeding edge.
Cutting edge. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really interesting that they're doing this.
Yeah, Budgie actually is one of my favorite desktops for my laptops. I've got several distros with Budgie running on the laptops because it's great for that.
Yeah, I think Budgie is very nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice combination of like out of the box polish with a little bit of modifications. Now it's not like you can't do a ton of customizations like other DEs, but the out of the box experience is very nice. So for a lot of people, you don't have to change that much.
Yeah, and this would be interesting seeing it being coded with Enlightenment. Really interesting. It's kind of like System 76 moving to Rust.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting too. But like the thing about that, there's some people kind of worried about like what does this mean for Budgie? Because the EFL change is going to be a big change, and because they're doing an organization, I think it's more like I was kind of worried about the EFL change because it's such a massive change that it requires an entire rewrite of the whole desktop environment. So like is it going to be the same experience for the user? Like, what's the amount of effort that's going to be required to do this change and that sort of thing? But knowing that they're actually contacting the other distributions who are working on it, like Ubuntu Budgie and EndeavourOS, are putting an effort in to make this kind of a collective effort is a really good idea. And I'm now very excited to see what could come from this, because there's a lot of
That was
potential.
the genius move from Joshua, in my opinion here. Seeing that he's creating this organization and is going to invite these individuals like Ubuntu Budgie and Endeavor in to work on this together. I see major innovations coming from that type of collaboration occurring, because I know there's been some, disconnect between Ubuntu Budgie and what they're doing and what Budgie's doing over here with Solus in the past. But inviting all those folks together and getting them to collaborate and work, there's some really genius people over there in the Ubuntu Budgie team that can do some awesome things, and in the Endeavor team as well. I'm really excited for the future of Budgie. So from that perspective, I think this is going to be a great thing. I think from a Solus perspective, this could be a good thing as well. Solus now has a chance to kind of look back. I don't know what happened. I don't have the details, and Joshua didn't give it to us. But this gives them a chance to look back at the organization, the contributors, see if there's something they want to change and do some different things with Solus that maybe they weren't able to do before. So I think from all perspectives, sometimes it's good to have some personnel changes and things move around from time to time. And I think it's really good news for Serpent OS as well to have somebody with Joshua's skill back in there with Ike working together, because we saw what they could do with Solus back in the day. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's potential to be positive for everything around here, and also I think that it's really cool because, like, last week we talked about my experience with ultrawide, and I got a lot of comments about like tiling is a solution. And while I do think tiling is good, I actually was really interested about this particular piece because of Ubuntu Budgie's window shuffler, which is a tiling system that's built into the Ubuntu Budgie, but it's not really like a Budgie thing. So it's really cool that this is like it's that there's a potential for this collaboration effort. And plus also maybe like other distributions could implement Budgie more, because like, for example, Fedora could make Fudgie, which is like Fedora.
Oh, come on, Michael. No fudgy, just Budgie. I didn't know Budgie was one of your favorites, Jill. I'll be honest with you. I haven't used Budgie in a really long time. It's probably been years at this point since I've played with Budgie. But I remember back in the day when I was working with Dustin, or he was working with the Ubuntu Budgie team, and I would talk a lot with Dustin about the window tiling, because I was big into i3 at that time, and we were sharing ideas of how it could work. I loved what they did with Shuffler. I thought it was a brilliant implementation of a very simple tiling tool that anybody could utilize and start working in, versus, i3 and these others. You have to learn all of these various key combinations right up front. You have configuration files to mess with, which can be confusing to certain people depending on your level in Linux, where Shuffler just made it open for everybody. I thought it was a brilliant way of doing tiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Just easy for the average user. And also, they have come so far with Plank. Really amazing. I remember in those early years, there were tons of paper cuts, and now they have just cleaned up all the menus, and it's beautiful. It really is.
Give Budgie another try here. I've got these new monitors, which we'll talk about on Hardware Addicts, because Michael has them too. So we're not going to give any hints here. We got some new monitors, new monitor for Michael, because he had Ultra, but he's gone to something different.
Yep.
I've gone to something different. I'm going to have to try out Budgie and see how it looks on these, because
that's a great idea.
There's some issues with scaling in GNOME that I'm running into. That
scaling in high res monitors, it's a task. It's a task on Windows too, by the way. Just for people, it's still a task everywhere.
Well, I mean, you are the expert in Windows, so think of us know that.
I've heard, Brian. Yes. I have heard that it's bad.
I got him, Jill. Did you hear how good I got him?
There's something else
oh my goodness.
Kind of significant. I was just thinking about this while we were talking, is that Budgie moving over to Enlightenment. That's huge, especially for multi-monitor support, because Enlightenment, if all of you don't know, was the first X window manager that had multi-monitor support. It was always way ahead, and that's one of the reasons I still love Enlightenment.
There's actually a really cool feature of Enlightenment that a lot of people aren't aware of, that I think it's the only I mean, it's not a DE; it's a window environment, as I've decided to coin it. But it's the only one I know of, other than like tiling window managers, that have this feature, being able to do independent workspaces per monitor.
Yes.
So you can actually have your monitors not switching all at the same time. You can have one switch, and like depending on like how many configurations, you can even have like 2 on one monitor, 3 on another monitor. Like there's a lot of great possibilities. There's a lot of potential for Budgie if they could implement that sort of stuff. That'd be really cool too, because Enlightenment has a lot of really interesting approaches to how they do workflows.
And it's this beautiful desktop that's somewhere in between, Window Maker and an XFCE. It runs so fast. It's a good in between as far as memory management goes and speed. It's just really slick.
Absolutely.
So many exciting things coming for 2022 out there. So if you want to, you can follow Ike Serpent OS's channel and watch him code live on YouTube. I find it fascinating. He uses Visual Studio Code, by the way. We had that episode about IDEs and what people were using. So you can see that. So we'll see some development there. You can follow Joshua and see what work he's doing on Budgie, and of course the Solus team out there as well, and see some of the changes that's going to happen. One thing's for sure, changes in the air, and I think some of this stuff looks like it's going to be ultimately good for the Linux community.
So while we've covered this awesome game in the past, we just have to talk about Splitgate again in our gaming section today. Yes, we do. So Matt played it with Das Geek on the charity stream, and Michael and Ryan have been playing it on random streams. In fact, make sure to watch Michael and Ryan's Christmas Eve game stream of Splitgate on the Das Geek channel.
We had a Christmas special.
Yes, we did.
Now, Jill, what you failed to mention
working on Christmas.
What you failed to mention in your intro to that game, Jill, is the fact that I'm better than Michael and better than Matt in this game. I mean, I found that shocking.
I don't think that that's how it happened. Based on the if people go back and watch the video on Ryan's channel about our gameplay, you'll see that I'm typically the better player.
Well, I ran into a lot of lag and input issues and sound problems. But if you minus all of that out, my gameplay was terrible.
To be fair, we were all like, to be fair, like the room was kind of like interesting, because sometimes we would play with people who were on the same skill level, and we would actually have like trade back and forth who's at the top, who's not, like, that kind of thing. And then we sometimes got into games where people were like just destroying us, and it was who didn't die as much.
Right, exactly.
Well, on the Christmas Eve stream, Michael hadn't, played it before. That's true. Had to go through training first before he could frag Ryan.
Right.
That was a thing.
Right. No, you did have to go through training, but you did pretty good. And this game is so fascinating because it's Portal and Halo combined, and you've got to create these portals, but that allows you to do some really neat trick shots. So you could create a portal, on one side of the map and the other side of the map. So you could be shooting people through the portal from opposite sides of the map and get behind people and things like that. And Michael would fall for all the tricks.
Not even any. So here's really what happened to this game. It was so fun because of this concept of the gates, the portal system, and the portal versus like portal plus Halo. Such an interesting concept, and I think it's a fantastic game, and it's so cool. But I almost never used the portals. Like, I was very rarely using the portals because I just haven't got the mechanic right yet.
Yeah,
so I was just going the first person shooter route, and I noticed some people trying to get behind me with the portals. So I would just see them trying to like do this thing, and they were running away, and all of a sudden they're coming back. Like, no, I know what you're doing. So I come back and get them, and like, haha, I used your portals against you.
Yeah.
I saw Michael aiming at Ryan through one of the portals.
Really, Michael?
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch our own videos.
I think that's possible.
You betray our friendship.
I think it's possible.
Lie.
But I tried.
This is such a fun game to play. Jill, how much do you like Splitgate?
Oh, so I haven't played it multiplayer yet. I've gone through the tutorial, and I want to play with you guys.
Take Jill out.
Because I want to play with you guys. Actually, I did play with randos, so you can do that. But I wanted to kind of wait to play it with multiplayer with my Destination Linux family.
Awesome.
I love it.
We definitely need to do that.
Everyone's going to hate us, though, if we win. Like, if you take out Jill, is there any glory in that? Like,
I think
like,
she's.
We don't like you.
Like,
let Jill kill you.
I think she's just kind of like stealthily, like, you guys think that you're good, but you'll see.
Right.
Aww. So yeah, Splitgate is not only an amazing game to play, but it is free to play on Steam.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's playable
amazing.
on Linux from day one.
That's awesome. Yeah, being on that Linux day one, thank you so much for doing that. That's fantastic. And also the fact that it's free to play and it's such a cool game. Like those, usually when I see a free to play game, they're not that great, especially when they first start coming out or whatever.
Yeah.
This is a completely pivot
it's like
from
a AAA
that.
game.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah.
So there you go. Grab all your friends, go together, create portals, frag them, or just join and subscribe to our channels, because you never know when Michael and I and Jill now might just randomly pop up with the game stream out there. So you gotta be subscribed for that.
We also give you a lot of great tutorials about how to play that game. No, we tell you exactly what to do and what not to do. I mean, we're wrong when we tell you this stuff, but we do say it.
We do tell you, we at least attempt to. Well, if you're not into gaming, then the software spotlight this week is going to be perfect for you, especially if during the holidays you acquired yourself a 3D printer. I love this software. It's one of my favorite pieces of software like on the planet, and I fall in love with it every time I go out there and try to use my 3D printer again, because at times I'll go a month or two without using my 3D printer, and then I need something, like I needed a holder for a router and I needed 3D print it, and I was like, oh man, I've got to go through all this. Oh no, I set up OctoPi and it's all ready to go for me right off the bat. Woo-hoo. Because it's always ready to go. That's the great thing about OctoPi. So that's our software spotlight, is OctoPi. What you can do is install this on a Raspberry Pi, and from any browser, any of your computers on your network, you can open up that browser, get onto OctoPi, and it controls your 3D printer. So I can send images up for it to print for me. I can monitor my 3D printer and look at the heat from the head or the bed itself and make sure everything's running optimally right there from OctoPi. I think even people have set up cameras so that they can monitor the 3D printer from a camera too as well through this thing. But it's such well-written software, and it's that software that just constantly works. No matter how many months you forget about it or whatever, it'll update and it's there and it's perfect, and you can access your 3D printer and do the things you need to do and then not think about it again till you need it. And that's what I love about OctoPi. Now, personally, I use the longer LK4 3D printer, which I like a lot. Works really good with Cura, works really good in open source. And I might do a video on that in the future. Jill, I have a feeling you've messed with 3D printers in the past.
Yeah, I sure have. I did play with OctoPi like when it came out. I think it was like 2018, and it was powerful then. So I'm, looking forward to playing with it again. But I have played with quite a few 3D printers. But this one looks like the best open source.
It is. And it's open source, and it's very well maintained. There's lots of patches. They have really good release notes that come up to tell you, hey, there's a new version. Here's what's coming in it. Really active community. It's just great software. So OctoPi, go check it out.
This week's tip of the week, I wanted to give you some tips about Dolphin File Manager. Now, this is because it's kind of inspired me based on a video that the Linus Tech Tips was doing these videos about a Linux challenge, and I did some reaction videos. In the third video, my last one I did a lot of accidental tips about how to use Dolphin. So if you want to see some cool tips that are not going to be featured here, but you want some extra ones, go check out that video. I have it linked in the show notes. But I wanted to give you some cool things that I thought about after I had done the video and realized it was an accidental tutorial for Dolphin. Well, there's some stuff I didn't mention that are just awesome, so I wanted to put it in the show. So first of all, I wanted to tell you about the split view option. So you can actually have two different basically tabs, but it's split into like one folder and another folder side by side. You can easily move files back and forth, and it's you could do that through tabs, but you can also have it in the same window, which is just really cool. And to activate that, you just hit the key F3, and that's it. Also, just a real quick one, you can also really quickly rename any file or folder by selecting it and hitting F2 on your keyboard, which applies to a lot of applications, but it also works here. And then there's another feature inside of Dolphin that is able to use the F4 function key to open a terminal. That's right, a terminal inside of Dolphin. So what happens?
That's my favorite.
It's such a great, so it allows you to have a terminal really easily accessed. You remember thinking like, well, I could just have a drop-down terminal or, that kind of thing. The extra thing that makes this valuable is that the terminal is constantly tracking you and following you as you go through different folders. So instead of having to do CD and then go to the folder you want, every time you click around inside of Dolphin, the terminal below is following you as you go. So you don't have to worry about making sure you're in the right folder when you run a command or run a script or whatever. It's just fantastic. And then the last thing I want to tell you is that when you open Dolphin, you'll see like the list of like the breadcrumb style of showing you the different folders you're in. And you can hit Control L on your keyboard, and that will activate the location bar, which will show you the actual path to those folders. So there's 4 Dolphin file manager tips. And if you want some more, check out the link to that reaction video I made in the show notes.
There's also some news that will make Bo very happy with Dolphin, in that there's finally root file operations coming in Dolphin.
Yeah.
It is
That's
coming.
pretty exciting as well.
They haven't said when it's going to be happening, but it is coming. So I'm very excited.
Well, as far as Linux events this week, and a special thanks to Durhans from the community who sends a lot of these every week in email to us to make sure that we cover. You've got Fosdem coming up February 5th and 6th. Of 2022 now. I got to get used to saying 2022.
I know.
It's
weird.
Wow. I'm going to write 2021 on checks and everything for a while here. But Fosdem is a free event for software developers to meet, share ideas, and collaborate. Every year, thousands of developers, free and open source software all over the world gather. And this year, of course, because everything going on in the world, it's online. So if you've never been able to attend in person before, you can check out attending virtually in this year for Fosdem. And then, of course, we have LinuxFest Northwest. I know nobody here knows anything about LinuxFest Northwest, right, Jill?
Oh, yeah.
I've been
Michael,
there too.
you've been to LinuxFest Northwest as well.
Yep. I have.
Did you like this conference?
It was a fun conference. It's been many years since I've been there because it is across the country for me. But I did go and I did enjoy my time there. So it is a fun conference. And I think if you're interested in checking it out, it makes it a lot easier because this year it's going to be virtual only.
Yeah.
So anybody can attend from anywhere.
You have no excuse not to be there this year, Michael. They could have a virtual Michael. The Michael AI could be there.
You also have
Everybody
no
can
excuse
interact.
not to be there. So
Well, I'm really busy that day. No, I'm not. I would love to be there. April 22nd through the 24th. If you want to join LinuxFest Northwest, you got presentations and exhibits of free open source topics. So a really fun one to be a part of. And of course, SCaLE. And SCaLE is happening this year. It's the 19th annual Southern California Linux Expo. Jill's putting on her penguin hat to celebrate, taking place on March 3rd through the 6th of 2022. And this one isn't virtual, right? You can, so far anyways, it's going to be in person.
Keeping our fingers crossed. Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to mention also Dare Hans, who has been providing all this wonderful news about our conventions and events. He's actually a friend of mine and a huge supporter and friend of the Linux Chicks of Los Angeles.
Awesome.
In fact, he's donated quite a bit to our organization. And he's also a great speaker at many conventions, including SCaLE. He does SCaLE, a talk at SCaLE almost every year. So don't miss his talks. They're very excellent. Actually, some of the best talks have been Dare Hans's talks.
Very cool.
Wow.
Well, he also takes the time to send us all of these events through email. We really appreciate all of his work there. So there you go. We've got 2022 with 3 awesome events that you can attend coming up. So mark your calendars for those. And a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. We're here every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, live at dlnlive.com. And the best part, everyone is invited to watch the recording of Destination Linux each and every week. And we can't wait to see you in the chat. And then we also have our glorious patrons in their 60,000 square foot virtual stadium. They get to hang out with us. They get to watch the video. They don't have the delays and things that YouTube is. And they also get the patron after chat after the show each week.
Yeah, and also if you want to become a patron, you go to destinationlinux.org/Patreon to sign up, and you get all those perks. And I got to say, the patron post show this week is going to be so awesome to have Bo there, so I'm looking forward to that. And also, if you want to get some swag, you can go to dlnstore.com to pick up some swag. We have T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, all sorts of stuff.
Jill's collected it all like Pokemon over there. Look at that. Jill has everything from the store.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
And there's so much great stuff there, so check it out, dlnstore.com.
Well, Michael, before we continue on, what's happening with Jill's shirt?
Oh my!
What is happening, and when will Jill's shirt be available?
Okay, so
This is big drama in the open source community.
This is big drama, especially for the show. It's interesting that you brought it up because I was going to try to skirt it under the rug and just kind of ignore it.
I saw you trying to go. I'm
Okay,
like, nah.
okay. Unfortunately, there's this weird issue with this the Jill shirt being in review, and it's been in review for like 2 or 3 weeks now. I don't know why it's still there. I've asked them about it, and they were like, "Just wait longer." Like that's not helpful. Ultimately, we're just going to be switching to a different store system and not even using the ones because they're at this point we don't even know how to fix this or even what's wrong because they haven't remotely
it's
said
amazing
anything.
to make money for these companies.
Yeah.
You sell this merchandise and then their customer service is so bad and they don't care. That stuff just shocks me. But you know what the great thing is? We have choice and we're just going to move to a different provider.
Yep.
And then get Jill's shirt up. So
Exactly.
What's the status on that, Michael?
I think I'm safe to say that shirt, the new Jill shirt, will be up at least by tomorrow. It might even be today, but
I heard today. So today, go get your.
I said it might be.
Might be. I don't hear the might when you say might. It will be.
My bad.
Awesome.
My bad.
Well, Jill, your shirt is coming. They're probably the company didn't want to even put it out there because they don't have that many shirts to print. They're going to sell so many of them.
Exactly.
So, but this new company is
Just
ready
afraid.
to print the Jill shirts. So there you
Oh,
go.
cool. So make sure to check out all the amazing shows here on the Destination Linux Network. We have the Sudo Show, This Week in Linux, the Dust Geek channel, DLN Extend, Hardware Addicts, GameSphere, and get your Fedora hat on with the Fedora podcast. So everyone head to destinationlinux.network and subscribe to all these great shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app. It could be a star or a heart or a thumbs up, so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching in the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, you know what?
What's that?
There's another show that's coming that we didn't put in the notes here, coming to be part of the Destination Linux family.
Oh, yes.
That is true.
Woohoo.
What is the new name of that show that's coming to the Destination Linux family? Are we ready to? We announced that.
I'm not
right?
sure. I'm not sure if it's announced that they. It's a good question. So we have a new show that's coming, that's joining the network, and it's got a fun name. I don't know if we've announced the new name. I think we have announced that it's joining. I don't know if we've announced a new name yet. So are we going to do it now?
Yeah, we'll hold off on that. But there's new stuff coming in 2022.
We have a lot of awesome stuff coming in 2022. There's actually 2022 is hard to say apparently, but I think everybody's gonna love all the stuff that's coming because we have a lot of changes and they're all good changes. Usually when you hear like, oh, there's got like a pros and cons, no, they're all good. I am super excited about these.
More stuff, more
for
awesomeness.
Sure. Yes. And we got with so much planned. And but for now, everybody have a great week and remember that the journey itself is just as important as a destination.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next week.